It's all yours, Lawrence.
All right. So good morning, everybody. July 24th. Can't believe it. Time is flying again. And obviously the important message is that the slaughterhouse of failure is not in my destiny. I will persist until I succeed. And on that note, I saw Admiral McCraven, Navy SEAL. One of the things about the Navy SEALs is never quit. So anyway, today, what I wanted to do was we're going to up this Friday call a little bit, since mindset is such a huge, important part of our business. All the rest of trainings we can learn, we can be taught a lot of things, but the mindset is something that is absolutely fundamental for us to either succeed or fail. So, the key to success is addressing the mindset, which leads to the decisions. We must change our thoughts of ability to change. Build your abilities are key to be able to change the growth mindset. So there are two things that I'll mention today. One is a growth mindset, and the other one is the fixed mindset. So the growth mindset has to do with, well, for example, the fixed mindset, people are looking at the results. And if they did well, they think they're winners. As opposed to a person with a growth mindset, if he fails, he thinks, how am I going to get better? And he strives to continually get better. So the growth mindset is out there to build, and the fixed mindset is out there to analyze, just to go where they're going, and oh, well, I failed. So the mindset part of it. So Dan, I don't know, let's start doing a little back and forth on this.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about that as well, Lawrence. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Interestingly enough, the first guy that came out with an IQ test, I believe his name was Dr. Benet. Their belief back then, I think it was the early 1900s, late 1800s, was that everybody essentially had a fixed mindset. But that's changed over the last 100 years to a growth mindset. And, a lot of people, when you ask them what the difference is between what sets those apart who accomplish great things from those who fail, to realize those ambitions, is it all comes down to mindset, growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And a lot of people think that this has to do with intelligence, appetite for risk, or creativity, what your mindset is, or how successful you're going to be in reaching your ambitions. But it really all comes down to growth, having a growth mindset. And a growth, your brain's is malleable. You have the ability to change, and you need to do those things that allow you to change on a daily basis, from reading, writing, taking notes, writing about what your ambitions are, things like that. So, you're malleable in your mindset. So, even if you have a fixed mindset, you can change that. That's the good news.
Yeah. And there's a part that's important. There's the guy who was, well, actually, let me go back. So on the mindset, there's an example of a person who has two jobs, and one of them was at the Four Seasons, and the other one was at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And on the job the person had at Las Vegas, he loved it. He absolutely loved his job. And the job that he had at Caesar's Palace, the same job, he hated, because he was doing part-time on both. And the difference was that at the Four Seasons, management had the mindset of helping the people, being responsible for the people in the job and not for the job. So the mindset of the leadership of the people in Four Seasons was, how can we help the people in our job, as opposed to the mindset of Caesar's Palace, which is, you've got to just do this job, and it wasn't about the person. So that helps also with the mindset that we have individually, how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about what we're doing. How we, in our case, we've got a fantastic advantage where we've got a whole team of people to work with to help us.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. Mindset can be cultivated, and that's a great example of how they're doing that and creating, more satisfaction with the job, or allowing people to grow, because you can't really recognize what somebody's true potential is unless you're actually helping them to cultivate that, and they can cultivate it on their own, but in a work environment, you're going to be much more successful with that when you're helping people cultivate that mindset as well, because it's going to benefit both you and the person, your business. So it's really tough to recognize that in a person, and initially maybe, but you can really help them cultivate that mindset.
Yeah, and actually where we are as well, I think since we eventually become leaders, but we're not trained to be leaders. We become leaders because we've kind of gone through all the emotions and we've become good managers of what we're doing. But then we become a leader, and no one's really taught us to be a leader. We know all about how to manage because that's what we've done all our lives. So that mindset of being able to graduate from manager to leader is something that we also have to consider very carefully. And we need to be able to understand that this is a people business, and how we manage ourselves and how we help the people that are with us. So it's about the people that are with us and not just about a business.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One thing I've been reading about recently is an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality, and basically people that adopt that abundance mentality tend to be more successful because everybody's sharing ideas. I did that when I was a medical device sales rep. I'm not sure if I mentioned this on a call before, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I saw where the business was going, and realized that maybe if we, as competitors, if we work together to be more efficient, that we could maybe all be a little bit more successful. So I talked to a few guys from some competing companies into helping me out, and I'd help them out setting up trays at different hospitals for each other, so we weren't doing so much running around. And that honestly, everybody thought I was crazy at first. What are you doing? You're playing with the enemy. And we were just, everybody had a lack of time. We were running around like crazy, and it ended up working out that working together as competitors, and kind of accepting that abundance mindset and mentality, where there was enough business for everybody that we didn't need to be that competitive and not work together to be successful. That really made a huge difference, I think, for all of us. So
totally agree. The abundance, if we think about our business, there are right now hundreds of thousands of people who are at home that are hurting financially, and that are hurting in every way, in many ways. And we have this opportunity to think about how can we help a lot of people and not be jealous about one or two people that we're focused on. Just help everybody, and what goes around comes around. And that is an abundance mentality, in my opinion, as well. And one thing we also look at is we say, we're always just trying to find the right people. Well, the right people, everybody could be a right person if that person has, if we have the empathy to be able to help that person to be able to reach their maximum level of wherever they're capable. So not everybody's going to be an Elon Musk, but we can certainly do our own part to help those people with that attitude and that mentality of being able to not be afraid, to be able to ask questions, to be vulnerable as well. It takes strength to be vulnerable, to say, listen, I need help me, I'm in a problem. So, and all of that, I think, is all part of being in the abundance where we're not nitpicking on stuff.
Yeah, I think when you get into that scarcity mentality, it kind of really does limit you, because it's more out of, maybe, I don't want to say greed, but something along those lines rather than what you said, empathy. And I've had a couple of situations like that with people that I've met through LinkedIn where I wasn't quite sure that they were maybe right for this business, so I kind of worked with them a little bit to see how, how they could move forward, whether or not they were looking at the materials that I sent them, and if they were willing to grow on their own, and if they were, then they were probably worth spending time on. If I sent them the videos and I talked to them again and they had no idea what I was talking about, then they probably weren't very vested in growing their mindset and growing as people and growing their finances and things like that. So, I always keep them in the back of my mind, because life's about timing. Maybe they had a lot of things going on that didn't allow them to necessarily be in that mindset right now, because it can be, the distractions can affect your mindset, and all these other things going on, but you just have to remain positive and through all of this, and looking at who you're talking to with Zoom prospects, I'm sorry, LinkedIn prospects and things like that. So
yeah, there are a lot of factors that people are contending with right now. I think there's generally speaking, a lot of fear out there, because we are in uncharted waters. No one knows for sure where we're going. How long is this situation in which we are in right now? Things that are totally incongruent. In this case, the stock market is going through the roof, and yet there are still a huge population unemployed, and the businesses are not doing well. So I don't understand. So all of this not knowing creates uncertainty. Uncertainty creates confusion, and that can create fear. So when we look at where we are, and we've got to understand that as leaders, we've got to ourselves identify the north where we're going, and that's the way we can actually start to help other people who may not have the same vision at this time, because they're emotionally in a different place.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's a ton of different things and distractions, like we both mentioned there, that can affect your mindset and where you're at the time. Especially right now, there's a lot of things going on, and people are worried about their finances, jobs, things along those lines, that may be affecting their ability to grow or be in that growth mindset. Just, you can fluctuate back and forth between growth mindset and fixed mindset, but you always want to be striving for that growth mindset, because basically the research shows that people in the growth mindset is the biggest predictor of success and how invested you are in that growth mindset. One thing that I was thinking about this week that really kind of hit home with me about this growth mindset, and I didn't even realize it till yesterday, was that as I was growing up and receiving a lot of awards and things like that for soccer and some other sports that I played, I never really kept the awards. I would always put them on a shelf for a week, and then I would throw them out. And then I did that as I got older. with my job and my sales job performance awards that I would get. I would hold on to those for about a week and then I would get rid of them. And I really started to think about it. Sometimes I wish I still had some of those as reminders. But what I really realized was I was heading towards that growth mindset. I didn't want to be held back by looking at an award and saying, you won this for that, you've reached maybe the pinnacle, or, you're the best you're ever going to be at that particular thing. I didn't want those reminders. I think I threw them away because I didn't want those reminders of that success, because, when you have those reminders around all the time, it's hard to stay in that growth mindset. It's easier to stay in that fixed mindset where you're not really looking to grow. So I thought that was very interesting. And then I was reading another article earlier in the week about 3 letters that can change your mindset. And it's 3 simple letters. It's just yet, Y-E-T. It's adding yet to the end of everything, because that leaves it open for that growth mindset. So you don't say, if somebody asks you if you know something, how to do something, you say no. You don't say, no, I don't know how to do that. You say, I don't know how to do that yet. And that always leaves that open-ended for getting into that growth mindset, where you're not kind of shutting it down to that fixed mindset saying, I already know everything, or I definitely don't know. I'm not leaving room open to grow and be open to learn how to do that thing yet. So I thought that was very interesting. And there were some studies done with school-age children. The reason I was reading it is I have a degree in child development. And it was interesting that they kind of implemented that into some schools and did some research on it. And as it turns out, the people or the children that started adding yet to the end of their sentences ended up being much more successful in having that growth mindset. So I thought that was interesting.
That's fantastic, because in fact, it's leaving the door open to the future, and it's not just living in the comfort zone of where one is, but it's opening it up to say, wow, here's another thing that I can learn, another thing I can do, and some more that I can grow on whatever the subjects are. So I think that yet perfect, and the growth mindset. This is the important part about this is actually that it's in constant motion, whereas fixed, you're stuck there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my personal philosophy is that every day I want to try and grow, to be a better person, be more successful, not necessarily in a financial way, but be more successful in my relationships, be more successful bringing up my stepkids. A lot of those things is just kind of to grow. I have eight other brothers, and most of them are not in that growth mindset, where they just, they've been doing the same thing the same ways for 25 years, and they're not even open to learning anything new or hearing about anything new. They're just happy where they're at in their life. And that's fine if that's what you want. But for me, it's all about becoming a better person, growing, always keeping that growth mindset, being open to new things. I try different things all the time. I probably shouldn't be sharing this with you, but I have a bunch of hidden talents, and that probably has to do with my growth mindset, where I'm not held back by social norms and things like that. But over the years, I was fascinated with my grandmother learning how to, or grandmother, what do you call it? Quilting, yeah, creating quilts. So I thought it was interesting. The math that I was involved with that and things. So I started quilting with my grandmother when I was at a young age. And then I learned all these other things. She taught me how to knit. She taught me how to crochet. I was always just fascinated with learning different things. So I have some hidden talents there, and I'm not embarrassed to tell you about a little bit, but that was all part of my growth mindset, where I wasn't afraid to learn different things just because it might have been associated with females and me being a male, or, it's just, if I wanted to learn something, I tried to learn how to do it. I tried how to learn to be the best I could possibly be at it. And everybody always encouraged that in my family with me, and I think that's why I've been successful.
Dan, you know, I've actually got in a few notes that I wrote down here. What you're saying is 100%, in my opinion, absolutely straight on. Where the person in the fixed mindset is looking at the results of what they did, whereas the growth mindset of what could be better. The fixed mindset's worried about how they're judged, whereas the growth mindset doesn't care about how they're judged. They just do it, and they might be criticized. They may, or you know, people may laugh at them or criticize them or not agree with them, but they are constantly evolving. So fixed mindset sees effort as a bad thing, only associated with low capabilities, whereas growth mindset is what actually will make them progress rather than stagnate. And that's where you have these people that are like bullies and so on. They criticize everybody because they're in a fixed mindset. So you know, I think what you're just saying is fantastic, where you can actually shrug off anybody's thinking about anything and you just do your own thing. And I totally agree with that. I lived that as well. I left home when I was very young, and everybody was very critical. Oh, you're leaving your parents, you're leaving your family, you're leaving this, you're doing that. Well, you know, I did not want to just be a part of whatever there was there. Just wanted to go forward.
Yeah, it's easy when you're in that around people that have that mindset, that fixed mindset, to just kind of follow in their shoes and be happy where you're at, and you know, not really want to grow. So sometimes you just have to break out of that mold, and get away from that, because it really is holding you back. You know, I think we've all probably met some people that have asked our opinions for certain things. And then when you give them your opinion, they just go with what their opinion was. So they really didn't want to hear your opinion. They wanted to see whether or not you would validate what their opinion was. But they're so stuck in their fixed mindset that they don't really want to hear, or they want to listen to what you say, but they don't want to hear what you're saying when they ask for your advice. So I had a brother like that, you know, we owned a construction company together. And every time we'd come to a project, he'd say, how do you think we should do this? And I could just tell that he already had his ideas of how he wanted to do it. He was just placating me by asking me what my opinion was. So you know, after a certain period of time, I just stopped giving my opinions, because, you know, it doesn't really matter to him. It doesn't matter. He's stuck in his ways. He does things one way, but he wants to make it seem like, you know, he wants other people's opinions. So, you know, we got past that. But, you know, ultimately he was just stuck in a fixed mindset, and there was one way to do things, and there were his way or the highway. And that's okay. That's how you want to live your life. That's fine. But for me, it was all about growth. And, you know, after a few years, I ended up moving on, not for those specific reasons, but, you know, I just wanted to continue to grow. And I study different things all the time. You know, I study Buddhism pretty heavily. I'm really, really into music, so I'm studying that. I can't play an instrument. I can guitar. I've been trying to play for 25 years. But I'm still trying to learn how to play guitar. I mean, it all comes down to practice, and I just don't have enough time to practice, but I'm not giving up on it. I still believe that I'm going to be able to pick that up someday, when I have more time to sit down and really practice. And I think that's part of the growth mindset. You never say that you can't do anything. You just keep plugging away at it. And, you know, maybe it's not the right time to learn how to play guitar. Maybe I just need, you know, have a little bit more free time in my life where I can sit down and spend more time on that particular endeavor.
Well, you know, here's a challenge for you, Dan. Kari gave me a guitar 3 years ago.
I saw one in the background the other day.
I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, 3 years ago, she gave me the guitar, and every 6 months she comes in here to dust it off. So while on that subject, here's a challenge. The challenge is we all have the same time. So it depends on the on the interest rate you have of learning that to play that guitar as a challenge. Here's a challenge for you today. Let's make time, say that between now and December the 31st, we at least learn to play something. That's a bit vague, but at least we've gotten to progress a little bit.
Yeah, you've taken those first steps, and that's a lot of times that's the hardest part. I say that about projects around the house all the time. We've all had this extra time over the last 3 or 4 months where we're doing projects around the house, and it always takes me a few days to get going on those, because you have to think about how you're going to do it, what supplies you're going to need. That's the easy part. The hard part is making a commitment to start, because I'm the kind of person that once I get started, I have to keep going until I finish. So for me, that's the biggest hurdle, is getting in that mindset to start the project, knowing that mentally I'm not going to be able to relax until that's done. So yeah, that's a great challenge. I'll take you up on that for sure.
Oh, okay. Game on. Actually, we need an incentive to do things. So I'll just tell you a little silly thing that during this, when you're talking about around the house, so there's a little joke going around about the guy who says, my wife got into the pantry the other day, and oh my God, she cleaned it out so well because she had found a cockroach. So she really went and took everything, cleaned it out really well. He says, well, my next one is I've got the cockroach, and I'm going to put that in the kitchen next, so she can really do a good job of that too. So an incentive for her to clean out. I'm just trying to say we need an incentive to do stuff. But the incentive now is a challenge and mentoring. And if we have a running partner, if we want to run or we want to do something and we have a partner to do that, then it's a lot easier if we can do that. So I'll be on your neck, you be on my neck, and let's see if by the end of the year, we can play some musical instrument. It's a challenge to do something.
Absolutely. And one last thing I wanted to talk about with challenges was I was reading an article the other day about a gentleman who broke the record. I think you all know from my past talks that I'm fascinated with mountain climbers and rock climbers, but I was fascinated with this story because it just seems so outlandish and outrageous that I couldn't even believe it. So there was a Sherpa from Nepal who set out to climb the 14 highest peaks in the Himalayas in under 7 months. Now, that may not seem like an amazing feat in and of itself, but if you think about all the preparation that goes into that, they have to have people that put up lines for safety. But what really hit home for me was that the previous record holder was Kim Chang-ho of South Korea, and it took him 7 years, 11 months, and 14 days to summit all 14 of those peaks. This guy actually ended up doing it in 189 days, which is just under, I believe, 7 months. Wow. So that's a pretty amazing feat. But he had to set that challenge. That the bar had been raised, and he put his mindset. He had that growth mindset to train to meet that goal and that challenge. But what I thought was fascinating was that he beat the previous record by 6 years, 3 months. That's pretty amazing.
We just on that subject, there are people that have gone up Mount Everest with prosthetic leg. I mean, think about the challenge of going up Mount Everest with 2 healthy legs. How about if you don't have that?
Right.
There's
another story about a gentleman just getting from Lukla, which is kind of the base camp, to the base of Mount Everest is like, I think it's a 10-day trek over different mountain passes. But I was reading an article about a double amputee who was going to do it in a wheelchair. But most of it he wasn't going to be able to do in a wheelchair, and most of it he was going to be doing in the wheelbarrow position, which meant that he was going to be walking on his hands, and one of his partners was going to be holding his legs up in the air. So he did like 90% of that 10-day hike on his hands while somebody was holding his legs up in the air. So it's, there's all kinds of crazy things that people do to challenge themselves and to show other people that, things are possible. The impossible maybe are possible. There's a myth about a guy from the patent office years and years ago, back in the late 1800s, that said, we might as well shut down the patent office. Everything that's already could be invented is already invented. So look what's been done since then. It turns out, I think that was a myth, that he never actually said that, or it was taken out of context to say that. But, just even the belief, that fixed mindset that everything that could be done had already been done was, it's just kind of foreign to me. And it's foreign to a lot of people because, this guy broke that record by, 6 years, over 6 years. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
So Dan, we're actually a couple of minutes over, 2 minutes over, 3 minutes. So basically, as a conclusion, the key to success is addressing the mindset which leads to the decisions. It's up to you on the decisions you take, and it's the mindset which will determine which decisions you take. Thanks everybody for being on. Dan, thank you very much for your pearls of wisdom there as well. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody. And if we'll